Biggest show of the year was the International Programmable Controller Show in Detroit, the IPC show. And we would work that show very hard. We'd get customers there, our distributors would bus customers there. And it was during a customer hospitality at the show that one of our partners, Scott Ziffer from ICOM, came up and said, you know, it's really a shame that we get all the customers here and the competitors, you know, get a seat and meet our customers. He said, we ought to just do our own trade show. And on the car ride back, I was in Cleveland at the time running our promotional programs, and I was driving back with Monty Roach, who was running our partner program at the time, the Pyramid Solutions program, and Kim Bettner, who worked for me. And we got to talking about what Scott had said. And it was about a 3-hour car ride from Detroit to Cleveland. And during that 3 hours, we basically created the framework of what we thought we might be able to do, didn't know the name at the time, but our own trade show. And what I managed to do was sit down with, at the time, people that worked for me or I worked with. And the three individuals that I think had a huge impact were Jenny Starzak, who ran our events planning, Les Jones, who was a graphics designer, Steve Holder, who managed our trade show activity, and then Steve Gokorsh, who was in the commercial marketing department and did a lot of the work with technical societies on the outside. And we sat down and discussed the whole idea. And they all came back with their ideas, their thoughts, their, you know, what it was going to cost, what it was going to take. And I tell you, they did a phenomenal job. And they did their regular jobs, but they came up with some great ideas. And I think that was the secret to the success, was taking people that knew what was needed, knew what to do, but acted as if they were in charge. We just really said, you're in charge. So once everybody came back with their ideas, their thoughts, we sat down, we said, okay, now we got to get kind of management buy-in. Walt Schweiger said, well, tell me, what do you think the biggest, you know, issue might be? What's the worst case scenario? And Monty and I kind of looked at each other and said, you know, it's if we build it and nobody shows. I said, we're very confident we can pull this off. We know that we can do a good job. And I said, our fear is, you know, are the customers going to be there? And after a little more discussion, they said, let's do it. And, you know, we then went and kind of got the whole organization energized. And that was the end of April. And we held the first show the first week in December that same year. And, you know, we pulled it off with no incremental headcount, no incremental budget. And we had, you know, 3,200 customers show up that first year.
You know, I looked at Walt and I said, well, that's a pretty good idea. What do you guys think? He said, yeah. I said, well, what do you think you can do it for? And he said, well, I don't know, $150,000, $200,000. And I said, well, great. You got it in your budget? And he said, well, absolutely not. You know, and I said, well, Walt, I'll tell you what. You go find $50,000. You know, you go find $50,000. I'll find another $150,000. You guys just go do it. Don't tell. You know, just go do it. Don't tell anybody about it. Just go do it. And they went and did it. And it's amazing, you know. And I like to talk about when you have good people and you give them, you know, a mission, they go off and do it. And that's how it started. There wasn't a whole bunch of, you know, us senior managers, you know, wringing our hands and thinking great thoughts. Some guys came back and said, hey, this is a good idea. What do you think? And I squeezed them a little bit and said, here, go do it. And they did it. And here it is, many years later, still going strong.
We kind of developed along the way the tenets of what we wanted it to be. And one, it was going to be educational. It was going to be informational, and it was going to be fun. And we chose the name FAIR for that reason. And when customers came up to us, and actually we met out inside the hall the day of the show, and we kind of were looking at each other as, are people really going to show up? And we walked outside to check on something, and Monty and I both looked at each other and said, wow, there's people standing here waiting, and we haven't even opened the doors yet. But the feedback we heard from pretty much everybody that first year was it was the most informational event they'd gone to. And one of the things we really strived for was teaching and educating people. And one of the things, being just us and our friends, not having competitors there, I think people were feeling a lot more comfortable displaying products in a way that was kind of unique, passing on information, because nobody felt like the competitor was standing there across the aisle listening in on conversations with your customers. The changes have been, I think, a little bit more in the entrepreneurial versus professional, if you will. That first year, we created a lot of things that we didn't know how to do, and there was a lot of sense of pride. We created a lot of our own information gathering, lead gathering tools. In general, it's gotten better. It's certainly gotten bigger, but we stay true to our roots of information, education, and fun. And it never ceases to amaze me the things that the marketing guys come up with when you walk in. Whether I think it was last year the virtual reality 3D theater that GMS was doing, the candy bars that the robots handed you in somebody else's booth. You can't experience it by hearing about it. The only way you can really experience is to walk in, see the customers, to hear. There's a noise that Automation Fair generates on the show floor, and it's the hum of people talking, and it's very interesting, and it's very distinctive. And every year I've gone there, that's one of the things I notice is you just hear that hum of 6, 7, 8,000 people all engaged in different kinds of levels of activities. And then there's the whether it's the klaxon horns or the 3D theater and all the other noise in the background. And there's certainly an aura and a feel to Automation Fair that I've never experienced in any other trade show, and I've been to dozens of trade shows. It's almost become the company picnic, if you will. I mean, you look at every year the people that get there. It's one of the few times that salespeople, marketing people, executives, the administrative people that go and support the show, the people that are behind the scenes that don't get out in front of customers that often. It's probably one of the benefits that comes along the way is the fact that people that just don't get a chance to see customers on a regular basis, like the sales and some of the marketing folks do, get a chance to interact over a couple of days. And it's not only the customers, it is our friends and our partners. The thought was this would be a nice 2 or 3 year kind of an exercise. And the feeling was that it had run its course in a couple of years. And at the time, I didn't know. I mean, we were worried about getting it done that year. But when I look back and see that it's taken on the life it's taken on, it's 11 years old, it certainly, whenever I walk in the front door, there's a tremendous amount of pride knowing not only the impact I had on it early on, but people that are still doing it, that did it that first year, and it's just so fun to watch them, and every year it gets a little better. And I tell you, there's always a little bit of nostalgia when you walk out the door at the end of it, and you're saying goodbye till next year. It's one of the most high energy 2 days I ever experienced in my career. You go from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and you're just talking to people, customers, colleagues, just continuously. And it's an experience that I've never felt anywhere else in the company in the 24 years I've worked here.